Hi, can you introduce yourself and what you do?
My name is Jason Kagi, and actually today I'm starting as an assistant research professor at Penn State University.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, that's going to be fun. So what is it that you're researching?
I am in like the fish and wildlife group inside of ecosystem science and management department. And I'll be studying various things related to, kind of intersecting cognition with wildlife. I guess you would call them issues, or like things like conservation or wildlife human conflict or invasive species, things like that.
So cognition, so that's like how fish think.
Mm-hmm. How they sense the world.
How the way fish think affects their conservation?
Yeah, I will also, yes. Lately my focus has been on fish and sticklebacks, but one of the exciting things about this job is I can also study other critters as well. I used to study birds back in the day, so I'll be moving back to studying them as well. So
yeah. And you're studying habit. That's fascinating. So why are sticklebacks so commonly researched? I studied fruit flies. So for me, fruit flies are super easy. They've got a generation time of like 2 weeks. Keep them in a lab. It's all good. No ethics involved. Sticklebacks, they're vertebrates. You've got to fill out animal ethics forms. They take ages. They're wet.
Yeah, and the wet thing was the hardest part for me, transitioning from birds to fish, was just like, just trying to understand these, and get into the head of a stickleback was more challenging for me because the environment's so foreign. But they actually do have some of the advantages that you found with flies. Obviously, their generation time isn't great; it's a year, but that's still better than some critters. But I think what we really like about them is they have all this cool behavior, and we'll be talking about that out in the wild. But then they're quite happy to come into the lab. Like it really isn't that big of a deal to bring them into the lab, and they'll do the same things. And so you can do really nice controlled experiments that and observe the same behaviors both in the lab and in the wild, and make really good inferences about evolution and ecology. And that's the other thing that's cool. They live all over the Northern Hemisphere. They, they're most of them by numbers are in the ocean, but you found them in the stream. Yeah.
Wait, this is news to me. Sticklebacks live in saltwater.
Yeah, that's where, like, if you were to take like all the sticklebacks in the world, most of them would be living in saltwater, and they come in to estuaries to breed. And so this is blowing my mind. So when you say most sticklebacks, obviously there's more than one species of stickleback. So I'm talking about three spine, which is what
three spine, which is the one that I saw.
Yeah.
And they live in saltwater.
Yeah, so the ones you have, I'm guessing, are in some stream not that close to the ocean.
No, they're in a freshwater stream in the middle of London.
Are probably actually have adapted to fresh water, and I doubt they would do very well if you dumped them into salt water. That's the really cool thing, is they are able to get into all these crazy habitats and adapt to them very quickly in time spans that we can actually see. So like there's lakes that formed in Alaska because of earthquakes. So it lifted the ocean up and made little lakes. And people have been observed differences in their morphology in 50 years. And
so you've got different populations adapted to different environments, rather than one individual. You could chuck it in any body of water and it would be happy.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's really fun. And so when they're in a lab, do you have them in individual tanks? Do you have them in one big thing that looks like a stream? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, we do all of those things. And when I say we, I mean stickleback researchers. So there's a lot of different variety out there of what people study. They tend to be kept in your typical fish tank. But then, I did a lot of work with their mating behaviors and their parental care behaviors, and so they're often I would isolate a male because they are. See in the video they can be quite aggressive. But I've also, and other people have studied them in big, basically swimming pools. or even better, like man-made ponds. So, or gone snorkeling. I haven't actually done that, but other people have gone snorkeling and observed them that way. So
yeah, wow. That's because coming from fly world, everyone keeps their flies in roughly the same way, and lab fruit flies are known to be very different from wild fruit flies. Because although we collect them from the wild multiple times, I think I calculated that it's the equivalent of 10,000 years of human time has passed between when we took ours from the wild and now in the lab. So you're saying that actually the behaviours you see in the lab are actually quite similar to wild behaviors.
Yeah, and most people actually will collect fish like every lab I've been in, we've actually collected fish each year, or maybe a line has been maintained for a few years, but they are typically pretty fresh from the wild when we study them in the lab.
And I suppose because they're so adaptable, they just don't really mind. They're like, oh, okay, we're living here now.
It takes them about like 2 days to realize that this person's giving them all the food they need, and and then they're like, oh well, here's some nice algae, I'll build a nest.
So we're talking about kind of nesting behavior and male parental behavior before we watch the videos, because this is the thing that I knew about sticklebacks. I'm like, okay, so the males, one, they build a nest, which is something normally you only think of birds doing, and they've got bright orange bellies, and it's a whole sexual selection thing. Like, why? So what is it that you were studying with kind of the sexual side of sticklebacks, and why do males make nests? They're fish.
Yeah, well, it's really fish in general. There's so much variety in parental care. Like, there's so much more interesting than say mammals. They have just paternal care, which is what sticklebacks do. Only the males do the work. There's maternal care, there's no care, there's both care, there's colonial, like social species out there. But yeah, there are the fishes actually have, if you take the proportion of animals that do parental care and you look at how many do just the paternal care, fishes actually do more paternal care than you would kind of expect.
So fish make the best dads of all the animals.
And there's some ideas about that, but they're not. Yeah, it's hard to really say.
So because normally females do the burden of all of the bringing up the kids, and so within mammals, it's because it's inside of us. You can't really do much about that. Birds, I think, tend to have it fairly even. But why would sticklebacks, because the males are still competing with each other, they've still got that kind of sexual selection aspect, and so why, and they can still produce more offspring than a female potentially could. So why are the males investing so much and the females so little? Like, what is in the ecology that means that the males are deciding to take on the burden of parental care?
I'm actually blanking on the this is embarrassing, but I'm blanking on the most common explanation that people have put out there. But it's not one that I've been very satisfied with. That's probably why I'm blanking on it. But
because the only one I read was the Richard Dawkins one, which is eggs are heavy, and so the female can swim off before the male gets there.
And I think there might be something to the fact that females can ditch it, and I know there's some other examples where the males and females are kind of like in competition to see who can leave first. But I'm not sure why fishes do so much paternal care. I think it does help that there's like ample places for their nests, and the females can leave pretty quickly after laying the eggs. I think the external fertilization is part of it. So like often, with birds, they do that little coital kiss, right?
Yeah, the most wonderful euphemism, I think, in the whole of biology. They're not having sex, they're having a cloacal kiss.
But the female and male are there together, right? But with the fish, like the female will go in there, lay her eggs, and then she just leaves, and then he goes in afterwards and fertilizes. So I think having that little bit of time there, like that interval, actually makes it easier for the female to be like, it's your problem. And so I think that might be what's going on.
Cool. So I, as I have mentioned, went to a random stream in London and was very excited to find sticklebacks. It was one of those, hang on a sec, they look like those drawings of sticklebacks from like the 1940s or whenever Tim Bergen was doing his stuff. I wonder if they are, and they were. So that was great. Can I show you them and you talk me through if what I think I've seen is what I've seen? So let me share the screen. So just kind of talk me through it. So the first thing, I was really surprised at how many there were.
Yeah.
Like, what's the normal density of sticklebacks? Because this was a small patch as well that I was filming. There were loads of them all at the surface like this.
I know, I was very impressed.
Like, what are they doing at the surface? Are these all females?
I think so. So this time of year, I'm guessing you just did this pretty recently.
It was about a month or two ago, so it was more peak of the breeding season.
Yeah, okay. So at that point in time, the males are going to be like, at their nests, like defending them vigorously. And so these females typically will gather in these big groups, and, it's probably for protection. I'm not quite sure why they're all the way up the top, unless it was a bit warm.
It was a hot day.
Yeah, so that's probably what's going on then, because they do this. I've seen them do this before when it gets really hot in our like the little swimming pools that we build for them, and I think the oxygen goes down a little bit, and so that's probably what they're doing there.
And what will they normally eat?
Well, so these streamfish will eat just about all kinds of little bugs and insect larvae, and they love stickleback eggs actually. So that's one of their favorite foods.
That sounds like a really counterproductive strategy. What's going to be the best food to eat? Oh yeah, potentially my own offspring. Do they preferentially eat their non-relatives' eggs?
There is one or two papers suggesting that in the male sticklebacks, that they will be a little choosy in which of their own babies they eat. So like if they were to have a male sneak in there, or you were to add some eggs, they would preferentially eat those eggs.
Oh wow! So they can do their own paternity testing.
Yeah, that's
independent of just it's a nest, therefore it's in my nest, therefore it's my offspring. They can actually somehow work out within a nest which ones are theirs and which ones aren't.
Yeah, these authors thought they were using like MHC to kind of figure it out.
That's really cool. That was what I was studying with fruit flies.
Oh,
cannibalism and relatedness.
You have to dig up those papers.
Okay, so back to the fish video.
Sure.
So these are what I thought were two females. Am I right?
I think so. Although I think they are females, and one looks like they're a bit fat. But one of them I think might be like actually fat because of eggs, and the other one, the one on top, I think might have a tapeworm. So
wait, you could see a tape. So some of them, do you call it gravid in fish?
Yes.
Like you do in insects? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, because some of them did look very pregnant.
Right.
So the one on the bottom now, is that the one you think has eggs or the one you think has a tapeworm?
I think that's the one that I think has a tapeworm. So see how near the cloaca there, it's like really, now it's back on top. It's like really white, and it looks like there's a white, I don't know, like band going across its belly.
Yeah.
To me, that looks like it's called schistostoma as the genus.
Isn't that the one you get from snails? Schistosomiasis.
Yeah. So, and luckily the ones they have, we don't get, but it's the same.
I was going to say, I was paddling in the stream with bare feet.
Right. It's the same. They're related though. And so it goes in the snail, and then the fish eats the snail, and then, or actually I think there's an intervening, it goes to Daphnia. Yeah, I think it goes from snail, and then some life stage of the tapeworm goes into it gets eaten by a Daphnia, and then they eat Daphnia, and then they get eaten by a bird.
That's so cool.
It affects their behavior. They're more likely to swim at the surface and do stupid things that get them eaten by birds.
Wow! That's really cool. These, I thought at the time, were 5 males. looking back at the footage, I'm not so sure, because none of them had the really strikingly obvious orange belly that I was looking for.
Oh, they do here, though.
They've got a bit of a red tinge if you
yes,
a little bit, but like I was expecting full-on orange. Like that's what all the behavioural books told me about.
I know they do take. Well, first of all, there's a lot that are drying, so that helps. You can exaggerate, and then they took the best picture ever.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've noticed with some sticklebacks do it better than others, but it might be happening here, is that they'll often kind of flush their color a little bit. So like here they look really pale. Mm-hmm. And they'll do that when you sometimes when you catch them.
Oh wait, so you're saying that they were within the period of time of them being in the stream and me putting them in this pot, they got rid of some of their color? It's
very possible, yeah.
Why would they do that?
Like a kind of, try to be less visible.
But I've already caught them.
Well, I didn't say they were like, the most smartest.
Yeah. Fair. And the eyes. So some of them have like strikingly blue eyes.
Right.
And that is supposedly like quintessential sexy male thing, right?
Especially like the contrast with
right.
Like if they were to right now to have that really bright red throat with that blue eye, I mean, that would be really stunning because the contrast there.
Yeah. So do females ever get blue eyes?
They will, which is frustrating because, we want to be able to sex these fish in the lab. And so they will get, like this guy over here on what's the right, he, I doubt would see a female like that, but any of these other ones, or even getting kind of in between there, it's possible they will get some blue. So
how do you sex them in the lab reliably? I've got the underside shot showing the lack of orange that I was very disappointed in.
Yeah, so like females would never have even this much color on their throat, and they tend to be more like silvery colored, and like males will have like, especially if you kind of turn them because it's a little iridescent, they'll have like some, it depends on the population, but it might be like blue or green. They'll have a bit of color on their belly, which the females never really get color on their belly.
Okay.
But then there's some other things like the spines on them on the pelvis will, if they have them, because some populations don't, will be red in males, but sometimes also females. Like there's some populations in Canada that are like the females have redder spines than the males. So, and those
and these are the three spines that give it its name on the back.
Right. So they typically, most sticklebacks also have two spines on there attached to their pelvic bone that they can put out as well. So basically they'll have spines going, if they get caught by like a fish or a bird, they'll pop their spines up and they'll have spines going upwards and then out to the sides and down. And that makes them a lot harder to swallow. And sometimes it gets spit out then.
It's a neat little trick. So you're saying that you reckon that all 5 of these could be males?
These, I think, are all males, yeah.
Yes.
And then there are DNA markers now, too. Several different markers out there. So, because there's some differences in populations, you can kind of figure out which one works best for your fish. But that's what we've been doing lately is we just either take a little piece of their tail, which grows back, or you can even kind of vigorously swab them with a Q-tip and then extract the DNA and do a PCR action and run on a gel, and you'll get 1 or 2 bands depending on the sex.
Yeah. So in the lab, would you know the sex of the individual because you knew the individual, or would you just be able to be like male, female, female, male, male, whatever?
It's faster typically for us to just kind of guess based on what they look like. And then for most of what we do, usually we just kind of pad our numbers a little bit in case some of them turn out to be wrong. If we really need to be sure that's a male or female, then we'll go ahead and do the genotyping. And then I studied more recently, I've been studying how parental care affects offspring, like juvenile development, like when, and those I can't sex reliably by looking at them. So those I all did through genotyping.
And do you then mark individuals?
Yes, and there's a few ways to do that. You can, like, I think the most common way is this elastomer. It's like I think of it as like giving them a tattoo almost. You prick them with a little needle, and you go just underneath their skin, and then you can inject this like colored. It hardens into plastic, and so you can make little lines. And so we have particular locations, and so you can come up with different color and location combinations. For short-term projects, I've also put like I've hole punched tape and then stuck it over their spines, so they had these little spine hats. And you can also, if you want to just make it obvious that you caught it before, but you don't really care about the ID, you can either clip the back fin or clip one of the spines.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
I love the idea of little fish tattoos.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was so now we're on to underwater stuff.
Right.
So, because watching them from like above the stream, I was amazed at how you can be like, firstly, this stream bed was just rocks with bits of algae on it. Like, it all looks very homogenous to me. And then you start watching them and you can see what must obviously by behavior be males being like, no, this is mine. And they kept on returning back to it. It was incredible. So what does a male look for in a nest?
So,
because this guy in the center has his nest,
right?
And
so
he came back to it, even if I scared him away with the GoPro.
So that's actually an interesting question, because it depends on where the fish are from, or who they are. So there's some fish that like really open sandy areas, and there's some fish that like want to have lots of concealment, and there's some populations where they like just build nests like in floating algae. So there's all kinds of variety out there, actually.
Because I find underwater, what I'm guessing are the females look a lot browner than the ones that I caught.
Yeah, it's like these males have almost like a reddish tint even to the rest of their body underwater.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And their eyes show up pretty well.
Yes. I mean, I will say that I have enhanced these images somewhat so that you can actually see what's going on. Okay, so can you describe what is going on? Like, so that to me looks like a female on the right and a male in the middle.
It was, and she was doing like a little approach to him, and he checked her out, and didn't seem like he cared much for her. She's checking out another male in the background now. And that female was she's fairly gravid. So
females go around and they're looking at the males. What are they looking for?
I mean, there's the coloration that we talked about, and that's, it's been most studied like over 100 years now. At some point, he will like kind of do some other behaviors, like the courtship behavior. So she'll evaluate that. And we're pretty sure
she's very much looking at him rather than the quality of his nest.
Well, so it's actually poorly studied that question, but we're pretty sure that's going on as well, because she does behaviors that make it look like she's evaluating the nest. Like she'll poke her nose in there, and
and right now this guy was finning for so long. I actually cut it because he's just spent like, I don't know, 5 minutes just finning at his nest. What's he doing?
Yeah, so given how much he's doing it, he probably has eggs. They will do this even if they don't, but it's usually for little short bouts then. But he really is doing it quite a bit. So there's probably eggs in there, and he's aerating them. And, kind of that helps give them oxygen. It also helps blow out all the carbon dioxide. So I think that was a male that kind of approached him. He didn't like that.
He's like, no, get away from my eggs. Exactly. And will it be...
yeah, that was a male.
I just love how they like fully stick their spines up. I'm guessing that's a kind of like aggression thing.
It is, yeah. Sometimes people will even count how many times they do that.
Ah, that makes sense. And a lot of them had these white dots on them. Do you know what that is?
I only know it's a parasite, but I don't know what kind.
So these are
there are
bloody
people
London
out there
fish.
who would be able to tell you, 'cause there's some. These guys have a ton of other critters living in and on them.
I can imagine. I mean, it wasn't the cleanest of streams either. And so within a nest, will the male have just one female's eggs, or will he have the eggs of multiple females?
He can have multiple. So there's like when he mates with a female, there's like a period of time, maybe a couple of days, where he's willing to accept other female eggs. And it might even be helpful to him, like if and at least in other fish species, if she sees that he has eggs, she's like, oh well, he must be a cool dude. So
someone else has done all the choosing for me. I'll just go with the crowd.
Exactly. She can save some time.
Now here, is this a female approaching from the right? It's just about to come in.
That one, yeah, I think so.
So why is he so aggressive towards her?
So
I was expecting it to only be
this,
male aggression.
Yeah, it's possible at this point. So a couple things could be going on. It's very possible he has eggs, and in that case, he wants to make sure she's not coming in there to just eat them, because that'd
be a bit brazen while he's at the nest to just eat his kids in front of him.
Yeah, but they do it quite a bit, and a lot of times the females are actually heavier than the males and a bit longer, so they have a bit of a size advantage. Yeah, so that's probably what's going on. He's being a bit protective, and if it's within that window where he's still accepting females, then if she comes back multiple times, then he'll like kind of get a little bit more interested in maybe actually courting her. But he doesn't want to just have her get in there and eat his eggs and not get anything out of it.
And now there were loads of females suddenly turned up here. So yeah, one of the things because normally when you think about sexual behaviors, the males are doing all of the like courtship, and the females are just kind of like receiving the courtship, I suppose, and then doing the choosing. Whereas it looked to me like you've got females almost approaching the males. Does that happen?
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things about sticklebacks is like their courtship is super interactive. And this is another one of those things that you see in textbooks. Like there's all these steps, and the textbook's a little cleaner than what happens in nature, but like there's these steps. Obviously. And a female has to do something and a male has to do something to get to the next stage. And and so it's actually that makes it really easy to like quantify preference of both of them as well, like how much they like the other. Yeah.
So males aren't entirely indiscriminate like we think of males being.
No, they do seem to be, that I think the other thing and this hasn't been studied, but males do seem to still be a bit more indiscriminate than females. But then they're investing all this time and effort into being a father, but they also are capable of eating their eggs. So I think there could be like a second stage of mate choice happening even after they get eggs.
Right, because like normally you've got sperm selection in females where although they've already mated, she can choose which ones go on to fertilize her eggs. So you're saying that males will fertilize all of them, and then he's like, actually, I prefer the latest female. I'll just get rid of the ones from before.
Yeah, it's something that, stickleback people have talked about. I don't think anyone's ever actually tested it, but it seems plausible. But
it would make sense because they're putting in so much of an investment,
right?
That you would expect them to act like females in other species that also put in a huge amount of investment and are therefore very choosy.
Exactly.
I think this is my favorite clip.
Oh yeah, it is.
This is such a sexy dude. Were those males he was scaring away? I don't know.
I think it might have been a little both. I think a male was following a female, maybe.
So
Here you can actually see his the entrance hole, right below his nose there.
Yeah. Wait, that's a hole?
Yeah.
Oh, it's tiny.
I know.
Because I've read about them like, the fish will swim into it. I was expecting to actually be able to see it. I mean, I was expecting the nest to be a little bit more visible than they were.
Yeah, but, and you can't even see it right now because it only opens up when he fans it.
Yeah. And so him fanning, you were saying that they will do that even if there aren't eggs at the nest?
They will a little. It's kind of funny because it's like, why are they doing that? But not to the extent that we're seeing here.
Okay, so it's probably got eggs
there. There you go. So now you can see it open again.
It was so weird because to me it all looks the same, and then I just see these males so aggressively defending this patch of mud that looks like all the other bits of mud.
Oh, I know, and it's so funny like how close they all are to each other, and
yeah. Oh, okay, hang on.
Okay, yeah, so this is some good, cool stuff.
So this was the bit where I'm like, I need to ask someone who studies sex about this, because from a fly perspective, knowing nothing about fish courtship, I'm like, this has to be courtship behavior, right?
Right. So you'll see the female come in. There she comes, and then he kind of like nips her on the chin there, and she raises her head a little bit, and then he does something crazy here where he actually is moving his back spines into her.
Oh, so he's jabbing her with his spines.
Yeah, I would like maybe it might be a little bit. It's a little more violent than a caress. He's probably not like actually poking her too hard, but he's kind of rubbing them into her.
Yeah.
Yeah, there he goes. So we call that a dorsal prick.
Oh, there must be so many prick jokes you can make. Oh, that guy is great prick. Okay, so she came to him, and obviously she found him quite attractive. Mm-hmm. And so she's interested in him, and he's also interested in her.
It seems like he's definitely giving, yeah, for sure, because he kind of gave her that little nip, and like that's kind of a funny behavior, because if it's a big nip, it's aggressive. It's a little nip, it's courtship. So,
oh, that's got to be a pain in the ass to study in the lab.
And then she's following him, so he's leading her. I mean, this is exactly what we call these behaviors. So he's leading her around to her, and then he's going to get her to the nest, but along the way he does a few little more pricks and kind of he's making sure she's interested. See how he does that little circling behavior?
Yeah,
he's kind of making sure that she's actually like into him, basically. Not just
all of these other females turn up from nowhere.
Watch, I know.
Are they just attracted by the dancing?
There's probably a little bit of the motion, but they might also just be like they could be also trying to find where the nest is so they can gobble up the eggs. They might be actually interested in his courtship. So
yeah,
there's probably a few things going on.
So they're making the most of it while he's distracted with this female.
Right. So he's doing lots of leading and following, and he doesn't, if she doesn't go in right away or knows the nest right away, then he'll lead her away and then kind of go back through and do it again.
Oh, okay. So it's not about keeping her on the nest. It's about making sure she's got a good entrance, almost.
Yes.
Because to me, this looks like she's now harassing him, which is complete opposite to Fly World, where these poor females are like, okay, I suppose we can mate now. But she's properly interested in him, except when she goes and checks out the other guy.
She was, although now she's looking at this other guy.
Because obviously I couldn't really see what the camera was recording at this point, so I found this fascinating. So was that not aggressive?
That was fairly aggressive, yeah. So I think he didn't like the fact that she got all up in the nest without having a little bit of a conversation first. And so this is a cool behavior. This is gluing.
What's gluing?
So in the breeding season, males shut their kidney off they don't make urine anymore. And instead they make this... What's that?
Painful.
Yeah, well, I think they just like get rid of I don't know how to get rid of the waste products. There must have some mechanism, but the liquid comes out through their intestines. So they go through all this crazy physiological changes in addition to the normal, like becoming a breeding male thing. So in addition to like getting extra color and their testes getting bigger, their kidney completely changes. It no longer makes urine, and now it makes this protein called spigin. And that is it's a glue, and that's how they stick all their algae and all the sand together. And so that's what he'll do in there. So it's
what's holding the nest together. So is that bit there?
So you'll see these little strands come out, like almost. It looks almost like, like a spider silk or something, but it's
yeah.
And that is the zigzag. There.
That looked nothing like a zigzag.
I know, it's a little frustrating sometimes trying to call them because the
zigzag's what you read about.
I mean, I will say I've seen a lot more impressive ones. He's being a little lazy about it.
So is it the fast movement, the stop, fast movement in another direction, stop? Is that what makes it a zigzag?
Yeah, it's mostly the change in direction, because some of them won't really stop. But it's the fact that he's stopping before he changes directions, but it's that change in direction and the quick darting in between each change in direction.
And all of this is just to say, look at me, I'm so sexy.
Yeah, it's incredibly obvious, actually, like especially if you're at more of a distance. Yes. So we're like really zoomed in, but like if you saw one zigzagging in the background here, it would really catch your attention.
Yeah.
It like their whole body like flashes in the sun, and she's really checking it out. Oh, he actually rubbed her with his pelvic spines there. He's trying to get her in. When he starts rubbing her with his pelvic spines, there's
a chat up line. Let me rub you with my pelvic spines.
Exactly. But she's putting her nose in the wrong. Did you see? If you look at like the hole was like a good, I don't know, centimeter or so away from where her nose was, so she's a little confused.
Yeah, so she's not trying to eat the eggs at this point. I wasn't quite sure.
And she's really fat. There was a couple of times when you like freeze framed it and you could see like her, from the back end. She's seems like she's got a lot of eggs in there. Oh
yeah, she is what the youth would call a thick female. More females coming to watch.
They are. Now, he doesn't do it, and that's partly, I think, his problem here. Males will often like actually they'll use their nose to show her where the hole is, and they'll even open it up a little bit for her. But he didn't do that for her, and that's why she had so much problems.
Because she, like us, thinks this patch looks just like every other patch on this floor. I do love this kind of side by side. It's almost like figure skating.
It really is. Yeah. I think now he's like, why didn't you go in? Are you really interested? So now he's testing her out a little bit.
And this poor male in the back is just like, I'm sexy too.
Yeah, it's actually, there's maybe a female, but not gravid. Yeah, when I was first watching this video, it was a little distracting because there is a lot goes on in the back as well.
Yeah. He's got a lot to contend with, males and females all over the place.
And then sometimes other types of fish will come through.
Oh, I did not spot any other types of fish. If you see another type of fish, you'll have to shout, because to me, I'm like, it's a fish. It's fish shaped.
Yeah. The sticklebacks are so tolerant of like everything. There's a whole other group of people using them as like they'll study ecotoxicity, because it's like if they aren't there, then your body of water is pretty messed up.
I mean, I was surprised to see them there because I did not think it was a particularly fresh stream. So has she just kind of given up now? Have they decided that all of that effort was for nothing?
It seems like it, and I think she looks like now she's scoping out some of his neighbors.
And he's just like, oh, well, I'll just...
She's like, oh, well, your nest isn't good enough to get into, so...
Oh, no, she's back.
She came back. She's like, one more chance. There's a nice dorsal prick there. That was a really good view of it.
Yeah, he properly gets underneath her, doesn't he?
Oh, there's another gluing.
Another gluing. So I wasn't sure if that was releasing sperm or not. So that's just holding the nest together.
That's right. Yeah, they'll actually wriggle into their nest when they release the sperm. It's doing a little bit of fanning.
All of that dancing, he wasn't successful. Oh, I thought he might have had a chance. And it was about this point I think I wandered over, and so they all scattered. Oh, well, that was fantastic. Thank you for talking me through all that. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sad he didn't get to mate. He was putting in so much effort. So this is the kind of stuff that that you will watch either in a stream or in a lab or things like that.
Yes. So my first postdoc, I was actually studying speciation in sticklebacks. And we were studying sexual selection and speciation. And so there were these, in British Columbia, there's lakes where you find, there's still, they haven't been formally described for some reason, but like Canada considers them different species of like conservation concern, but they eat different things basically, and they kind of divide the habitat up a bit. And there's some ecological, like, so the offspring, hybrid offspring don't do as well, like in terms of eating food, because they're like kind of in between. But one of the really important barriers is actually the fact that they seem to recognize each other and they won't mate with each other, or mostly don't mate with each other. So, and
they're all in the same lake, or different lakes of different species.
The textbook, like when you read a textbook, it makes it seem like they're dividing the lake up, but and they do that. Like the one, it's called the linetic. The names are actually terrible, but the linetic one is the one that eats plankton mostly, and it nests like really shallow water. And the benthic one eats like everything, and it nests in deeper water. And so usually that means that you have limnetics near the shore and benthics a little deeper. But like if you find a fallen log, which are really common in these lakes, then the limnetics will be on the top of the log and the benthics will be under it. So they're completely within like sampling of the females. And the males will actually court both.
And they've got quite good vision as well, haven't they?
I'm sorry?
They've got quite good vision as well, haven't they?
They do, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they see, they've got color vision, and they can see very well. And so the males will like initially like court both, and but the females are very, very picky. And so there's that's kind of, we were studying that, and also the male competition. So we were actually finding that the traits that make males really good competitors actually help like kind of accentuate the differences in the species. So they kind of like, like if you look more like a limnetic or more like a benthic, you're a better competitor than if you're kind of in between. And it doesn't seem to be like, it's not that the hybrids are unhealthy. Like they're very vigorous, and they like, cause this is in a semi-natural environment where we're giving them more than enough food. So they're very healthy, but they just aren't as good at doing the competitive behaviors. Like there's different strategies, and they're kind of doing a little bit of both. And so they're not like specializing on the strategies that work. So
you have to be one of the extremes to succeed.
Yeah, in that system. Yeah, for sure.
Huh, that is so cool. How long do sticklebacks normally live in the wild?
A lot of them are kind of like 1 or 2 years. There's some that will live longer. Like these benthic fish live longer. They're probably living like 3-4 years, maybe longer.
And in a lab where there aren't any kingfishers around, how long can they live?
So your typical stream fish is probably 2 years. Maybe you can push them to 3. But like we had benthics that were like 7 years old. So
wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of.
At that point,
variety.
Do you start naming them?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then like the marine fish I was telling you about, those live longer as well. They seem to have more of like a kind of like, they mate multiple years.
I still can't get over the fact there are marine 3-spined sticklebacks. And with all of this kind of nest tending and showing off and all the dancing, like do the sexiest males tend to have lower survival rates?
There was a paper that came out, I think last year, that actually did some cool stuff to show that, the redder throats get eaten more by the fish, by the bigger fish. Huh. So like if you cut open a bunch of fish, it's a very, So if you know anyone who like likes to catch like char or trout or anything, you'll find loads of stickleback in there. And then, or pike. And those, it did turn out that there were more, the more of the fish in the bellies had redder throats than if you were to sample kind of at random.
That's cool. And where do they get the red from?
Their diet, so it's a carotenoid, just like like a lot of birds will get like the red or oranges or yellows. Mm-hmm. So it's the same idea. It's coming from their diet.
So they're taking it, rather than making it themselves, they're taking it straight from their food.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I mean, this has all been absolutely fascinating. You have a job you need to get to. Is there anything else you would like to mention about the world of sticklebacks that hasn't come up?
Yeah, I realized that we got so into the behavior that we completely skipped the other thing that has made them amazing for researchers, is that they're just really good for studying genetics. So their genome is sequenced and is a pretty solid genome, and actually got better. There's now there's a new browser coming out soon it's going to make things even better. And there's all these molecular techniques. That's a browser
for the genome, not like Firefox or Chrome.
What's that?
That's a browser for the genome, like Chrome or Firefox.
Right,
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So it just makes it easier to kind of like arrange different types of data. And there's all these techniques that people are developing that initially in like fruit fly or mouse or that are now.
I was going to say, when it comes to genetics, I think Drosophila comes out on top.
They do, and they always will. But I mean, we can study epigenetics like methylation or other markers like how accessible the genome is. We can study expression in the brain, and we can look at, we can slice up tissues and look at what genes are expressed and do all these really cool stuff that used to only be able to do in a few little critters. So that's really opening up a lot of really cool questions.
And in a vertebrate as well, that's really cool.
I'm sorry?
In a vertebrate as well, that's
exactly.
Really cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I don't know, do you have anything you like to plug? Do you have a lab Twitter or something that you want to get out there?
Not yet, because I'm literally starting today, so I haven't got that going yet. It's like my website says in progress right now, but my email address is my last name, so it's keagy@psu.edu. So that's how people can contact me. And if you just do a Google search of me, you'll find my Illinois website, but I'll put a link on there to my new one when it goes up.
Yeah. Well, good luck with the new job. That's so exciting. And thank you so much for taking the time to
really watch. I could go on.
I totally thought they were having sex.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna have to go. It's too late now. They've probably stopped breathing as well. I was gonna say I could go back and watch some more spying, perving on them. It feels terrible.